Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast.
Well, cheers, gentlemen. How are you?
Good.
Well, and yourself?
Now that I have a martini in hand, I'm much better.
Yes.
Yes, made myself a little bourbon and Coke.
Good for you. Good for you.
Same.
I gotta go to work in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
I made coffee.
I'm just gonna have the one anyway. Got to work in the morning, so.
I don't know. I know you guys. I don't know how interrupted or uninterrupted your work schedule has been because of COVID, but I don't know about you. I have found that I am drinking far more than I ever have.
Oh yeah.
That's got to be usual and customary, I would imagine, across the.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Par for the course. Yeah.
It is. The funny thing, though, that I find about that is all the news reports indicate that the alcohol industry is still taking a hit. Regardless, I mean, I've seen a couple viral videos and things like guys jogging in the morning and looking at people's recycling, and it's just full of like all these liquor bottles and everything on everybody's house. But I guess they've still taken just such a big hit from the lack of liquor being sold at bars and restaurants. And,
right.
You think about all the keg beers and things like that aren't going down.
And I think overall there is absolutely, I mean, there's not as much money flow,
right.
In general. So, that really breaks my heart. I mean, I'm thankful that I at least have the finances to drink myself into a stupor. Because, well, I mean, wouldn't that be horrifying?
Right.
I mean, to be without the economic means to provide the excess booze
that's needed.
That's absolutely needed to get through this fucking crisis.
Right.
I can't think of who it was that we were talking to that was telling us there was like an aluminum crisis.
Yeah.
Because everybody's hoarding kegs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fuck. Nice.
That's funny.
Yeah.
There are no cans.
Well, that would be me if I had the room for it.
They're on to me.
Damn it. Oh, my God.
I gotta hide these things.
God damn, this is good. So we've got a bourbon and Coke, we've got coffee, and I am Bombay Sapphire.
That's my go-to.
That's good stuff.
Really interesting. I have developed a real taste for the garlic stuffed olives. They're just freaking amazing. Mm-hmm. And I've just discovered jalapeno stuffed olives. So what I do now is I alternate them on the toothpick. It's insane, because it's like I've got to have it all.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'd starve too.
Yeah.
They're about variety on the buffet.
Yeah, they're about the only greens I get. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm a purist when it comes to my martini, though. I just go with the regular olives in the martini. I mean, I like all kinds of olives, but martini, I just go with the pimento stuff. And I like my martini dirty, though. I like it with a lot of olives and a lot of olive juice.
I put 6 of those suckers in there, so I figure that makes it kind of, that dirties it up significantly, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And it's a meal.
It is. It is. It's hearty. Hearty, I tell you. That's what our ancestors did during the Great Depression.
Right. It's really,
when it was illegal.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Made that bathtub gin taste better.
I tell you, God, I can only hope they cleaned that motherfucker before they and there. It's just
yeah. I bet they skimped on that every once in a while.
It's something really sexy though about thinking about a bathtub full of gin.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of erotic to me. I don't know why.
Certainly romantic until you sat in it, and then
right.
And then all hell freezes over.
Ouch.
Okay, well, I see I have a cut here and a cut here.
Right.
That hemorrhoid is not doing well.
Yeah. Well, this This conversation just evolved so fucking fast.
Oh, quickly.
It went down. It went down.
So welcome to Undetermined.
Yes. Tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Aaron Ball joining us this evening.
Yes.
Yeah. Glad to have you, man.
Same one. Glad to be here.
You're one of those cats. It's hard to pin down exactly what to say about your career. I mean, you've been on screen in film since you were a toddler.
2 years old.
Your first film being one of my favorites was The Legend of Boggy Creek, the folk monster Bigfoot film out of Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And up to today, I mean, how do you define what you are really, just with all your work in entertainment and all the work that you've done? I mean, baritone opera singer as well. Is that
right?
Is that pretty much your go-to, resume descriptor right now? Or
well, I have to tell you, it was before COVID. COVID has, this crisis really. It has trends. I don't think in our lifetimes we're ever going to fully understand all of the ways in which this crisis has transformed our culture,
no, probably
society,
not.
our economy, our way of doing things, our ways of interacting, our relationships, how we develop them, how we nurture them, how we grow them. It's everything. I mean, it's top to bottom. And one of those things that has been radically transformed just fairly immediately is the performing arts.
Right.
What's my go-to? Yeah, I would say what my go-to career, what my resume looks like now is, I'm really moving forward with the company that I just started a few weeks ago. It feels like a few weeks ago. It was probably more like a month and a half ago, which is exactly in response to this need in the performing arts. I noticed, obviously a lot of my singing colleagues are out of work. The gig economy was shattered when it comes to performing arts in terms of even having viable venues is not feasible anymore. So it's just a real, that's something that has suffered. But what's troubling to me, and what has been troubling to me, is that I've seen a general malaise across the performing arts community. Now, I'm talking on behalf of, obviously, the singers are depressed,
right,
but I'm talking on behalf of the performing arts organizations.
Mm.
There was effectively a wait and let's see philosophy that was unspoken but implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people that just stopped administrating. So performing arts organizations whose seasons canceled with no long-term strategy for how to continue their season in a different way. So what I felt, and I still feel as a huge responsibility, just as a singer, as a performing artist, I feel it's my responsibility to help, first of all, sustain the performing arts. I mean, the arts and humanities waits for no one, right? So I think it's an unfair argument for people in administration to say we're going to wait, or we're just on hold, or we're on pause. These are all unacceptable, I think, to me. We are such an advanced society technologically.
Mm-hmm.
Right now. There are so many opportunities for performers to continue performing, for singers to continue singing, for performing arts organizations to continue producing.
Right.
And I think initially what I was encountering was a resistance to accept that. It was really strange. I mean, guys, it was like walking into a room and trying to convince people that what they've been doing all along is what they still need to continue doing. I mean, it's bizarre, right?
Yeah.
But so many stopped, and there was just this light switch. I've compared it to a light switch because I've seen it sitting in on so many different boards of directors meetings one of the things my company does, let me just throw it out there, is we provide training and workshop facilitation and strategic planning guidance and consultation for the performing arts organizations that want to continue delivering their productions, learning how to do that remotely, learning how to do that virtually.
Mm-hmm.
From the top down. I mean, we provide full service. Recently we came out of a training for a major choral ensemble that had on their roster 85 singers, but
Wow.
I actually trained 60 of them to get performance ready for remote performance. So it's my take, gentlemen, that the successful singer of tomorrow will also be a successful self-producer. They're going to have to, the sooner singers learn to adopt the skill set needed for self-production, the better they're going to be, better off they're going to be. But we train that. We bring singers up to speed on how to self-produce. We bring performing arts organizations up to speed on how they can continue providing quality service through the performing arts and possibly even further the art form of whatever art they're engaged in. I'm involved in opera. As you know, I sit on the board of a small opera company here in Los Angeles, and I've been fortunate enough to have, we've got a spectacular board of directors, and they have really given me carte blanche to step in with so many of my ideas, and it's really helped bring them into the light. All of a sudden, small companies are realizing that their donor base is now global.
Right.
That their audience is expanded in such a way that facilitates their association with other national associations and other national organizations that help strengthen them. They're just... It's just they need guidance. I think people just need, there's so much bullshit right now. It's hard. It's hard. People are all coming at this from a different place too, emotionally. And it's, you just have to be very sensitive to that. But anyway, that's my resume now, is heading up the initiatives for that particular organization. Initiatives. I told myself I was going to cut that fucking word out of my vocabulary, and I still fucking say it, right? So it's like, no, it's stupid. I am like, my head is full because I'm a business guy from the 90s. So my head is full of all of these fucking business catchphrases that I just, I wish to God I could take some kind of, I don't know, semantic vacuum cleaner and just suck out of my brain.
All those inspirational posters and
it's fucking
right.
But anyway, that's part of that's a huge part of what I'm doing, and that's not just a response to all of a sudden work drying up, right? Not being able to sing on the stage,
right?
It's a responsibility. It's a responsibility.
Well, it's to keep something from dying, I would think, too, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not reaching out to people and connecting with new people, guess what? The opera crowd's going to die out at some point if you're not connecting to new people.
Of course. And there's this idea, too, that, we in the opera world especially have known that the model for opera production in America, it's been needing to change drastically for a great many years. The donor base is getting older. There's always been this issue with, how do you make opera relevant, as if it needs to be made relevant. But there is some point to that. All of these questions about how do you sustain the form, the art form. Well, guess what? We are in a position now to where we have to make those changes. So
right.
It's fantastic. I think the same thing is true, not just with the performing arts. Same thing's true with our economy in general.
Mm-hmm.
We are finally at a place now where everything has to change. So what are we going to do about that? We're kind of looking at a scorched earth situation. We can build from scratch. We can build whatever the hell we want right now and make it good, do it right this time. I think we're going to see a huge change. My other business, I'm insane. I am fucking insane. So I run two companies.
Mm-hmm.
I run a product-based company and I run a service-based company. Command Performance, my shameless plug, for my service-based company. Get it? Verformance, virtual. I know. I thought it was pretty clever. I'm pretty proud of myself. So, but that's the service-based company, and then the product-based company is a 33-year-old business that is a leader in the dance sport industry for apparel, for dance sport apparel. Well, that kept me up at night, let me tell you, around the clock for the first, all through March, for sure, because, nobody was dancing. And then, some of our biggest clients are Olympic athletes. They're ice dancers. They're, competitive dancers. They're all professional, within the dance sport industry. And none of all of that dried up just like performance. So I refocused that company to move exclusively into facial covering production. And that is really what we're doing. And for the first time in that company's history, we now have clients outside of the dance sport industry. It's been a real stretch for us. It's something that I wanted to do initially, was expand our demographic, our customer demographic outside of its niche.
So this was like a perfect opportunity for it.
Again, it's the same kind of thing. Now we find ourselves in a situation where we're forced to do kind of the things we probably should have been doing all along, but never thought about because, we weren't forced to do it. So now our biggest customers for wholesale are retail pharmacies. And I don't think it takes too much explaining as to why that is. They're one of the few essential retail businesses that have consistently remained open, and facial coverings, especially designer facial coverings. I mean, we are an Emmy award-winning design house. We did the costumes for Dancing with the Stars for the first 12 seasons. And so so to have a facial covering on the market that is from the designers of Dancing with the Stars has a lot of appeal. And it has a lot of appeal in a pharmacy because that's where people are, and that's kind of where they're going to get that kind of product. So it's really interesting.
Right. Set it right next to the tabloids.
The one thing that I haven't worked, and I need to get better on this, I need to get better with delegation. There needs to be like 10 of me. I've got product placement, like where on the shelf, next to what and how. I'm very fortunate that the pharmacies that I've been working with so far are very savvy with that, but really that kind of is something that I need to be in control of, and I'm not behind that yet. So, there are a lot of things I'm behind the curve on, but I for the most part, I like to be there at the curve or ahead of it. And I've been trying my best, like everybody else. We're trying to keep our heads above water. So I guess those are the big takeaways. I mean, I am doing some audiobook narration. I'm doing, some gig work, but but my bread and butter and my actual resume are the two companies right now. That's where majority of my focus is being spent.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's not only the business end of it, but just your experience in entertainment and everything. Like I was mentioning before, I mean, you've been doing this your entire life. It's not like somebody necessarily who came into a career in entertainment when they were older, or, and then they can say, well, I did other jobs and I can shift things. I mean, I know you've done other things, but still, it's like being such a big part of your life. I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to me. I'm so full of gratitude when I think about it, guys, because, I woke up in the middle of this. Well, no, at the beginning of this crisis. Actually, it wasn't the beginning of it. It was in January when I was doing some of my second and third quarter planning for for Randall Designs, my product-based business. And I was seeing what was happening in China and Wuhan, and seeing then eventually what was happening in terms
going to come
or
here.
not happening in terms of its containment. And of course,
Yeah.
you look at the current administration and you're like, oh, we are fucked. We are seriously fucked.
Right.
Yep.
And so, I mean, just trying to build a long-term strategy about, based on a worst-case scenario, it's depressing as hell. But I really feel like I was the one walking around with a cloud over my head when I was going to rehearsals. I was in the middle of a production the run was cut short, of course, because of the lockdown here in California. But I was going to rehearsals. I was like, God, people were asking me, what's wrong? What's going on? I said, guys, this is not looking good. And they're like, what are you talking about? Everything's great. Guy, what? I was like, I don't want to bring it down. I don't want to burst your bubble, but we're all gonna die. I mean, that was kind of basically where I was. But, I've been very, very thankful that you're right. Really, my entire body of knowledge, all of the skill sets that I bring to the table, my qualifications, my experience, all converged when this crisis happened, and we're in need.
Yeah.
It was crazy to me that a trained opera singer with 10 years of higher education and training to support my craft, who also has a 17-year career in strategic planning and business development, and a background in audio engineering and video production, having run a successful video production company. All of these elements just like bam, 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 who I am, which is pretty much defined by what I do, all came into lockstep with the needs, the demands stemming from this crisis. And it's a marvel. It's a marvel to me because I do thank God every morning that, that I am of use, that I'm able to make a difference in these times because, and that I come to the table with exactly the qualifications and skill sets needed to be of use. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And, it's, and like I say, your business resume is very impressive, but I also want to get out there just to anybody to check out your work in opera and singing in it. You're a great performer too, dude. I'd say.
Sure.
God bless you. Thank you.
I do have to share a funny story though. I was like, Matt was telling me about some of your work. I was like, well, I'll look up some of his opera. And it's like, I looked into a video. I was like, oh, there he is in Don Giovanni. I'm going to check that out. Clicked on that link. The first thing I think I see is you flying across the stage naked. I was like, yeah, there he is.
Yeah, and there's a test. That's exactly what my friends who were in the audience. That was a beautiful hall, by the way. That's the Valley Performing Arts Center. It's a great theater. And it was a big honking orchestra, and it was just a big space. And yeah, I mean, I made my entrance in that particular production bare ass fucking naked. But you know what's crazy is that, so with some of my friends afterwards, they're giving me flowers and they're seeing me backstage, and one of my really good buddies, Paul Bonnell, he's the director of The Ghastly Love of Johnny X.
Yes. Just watched that last night. Yeah.
It's a fun movie. So Paul, my buddy Paul, he looked at me, he was smiling, big old grin, and he was nodding his head, and he was like, I just saw your ass. It's a 3-hour freaking opera, and all he can talk about is the first scene.
Right. Yeah. It's like the first scene. Like,
I just saw your ass.
Coming in after seducing the commandant's daughter, right?
2,000 people, and I just saw your ass. What are you doing?
Well, that was my introduction. I stuck around for the singing, though. So
there you go. That's how I met Aaron too. This was at work.
Sorry?
Statute of limitations, I'm sure.
Sorry, it was an olive. It went down the wrong way.
Yeah.
How did you meet me?
Yeah.
Well, we actually work together at a place that does not sound anything like any of these positions that you've described.
Exactly.
But you trained me for a shitty call center job many years ago.
Yep.
And I am so glad neither one of us is there anymore.
have to tell you that I am grateful for my time and experience with that company, because it really did. I mean, I was able to move as far as I could. I was able to advance as far as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And I am grateful for that opportunity. I mean, I started as a data entry associate. Like, I was punching a keyboard for claims processing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that when I went out. I was like making minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
I think I landed that job in 91 or something like that. And and I was able to move myself up to a director level. So I was very, very happy with the experience that I got there. But there comes a time where I think people outgrow their environment.
Right.
And, it was just a situation where I had gone as far as I knew I was going to be able to go. And also, when you're teaching people how to run a company, I think for me, I was haunted, and I think this is probably one of the major contributing factors for my resignation, was that I kept asking myself every day, why am I not doing this for myself?
Right.
I'm teaching a whole company how to operate at a high level. I know how to do this. Why am I not doing it? So I think that was the launching off for me.
Oh, I'm glad that was how it was for you. For me, it was more, and I managed to move up, to a degree in the company, not to a directorship, but I definitely got out of the call center. And I kind of ended up in a position where I got to go to a lot of meetings that were a little bit above my pay grade.
Right.
And that was kind of where it was for me, like seeing kind of this underbelly that I didn't really like seeing.
Yeah. I'd say director. I wasn't director. It was like a senior position.
Right. But I just saw there was another side that was going on with the real positions of power. And a lot of it gave me a really kind of a sick feeling.
Sure.
When I would hear what they were saying and just not some values that I agreed with.
Right. Yeah. It all comes down to that, right? We want to live. I think I can speak for myself. I want to live. I know I always want to live fully within, the guidelines of the value set that I have adopted. And, I also have to be open-minded enough to realize, and not rigid, and realizing that value set can be amorphous sometimes. I need to be able to give and allow for some wiggle room.
Right.
But for the most part, I think I come to the table with a value set that for example, I mean, there's some things that are just boundary crossing issues, right? And a lot of those are political.
Right.
So in a company, that's a place where that kind of bullshit shines its brightest.
Is this the same place, Matt, that you were telling me that there was kind of a poltergeisty thing going on?
Yes.
So what was going on? They were like digging up a graveyard across the, and this has nothing to do with your business, of course. It was like the city or whatever.
So yeah, the place we were working, they had just been bought out by like an architectural company or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And they were going to redesign the whole building. So they started work on what they were doing before we moved out, and they dug up the parking lot outside the building.
Okay.
And they found like an old, like French, when this was like French territory.
Yeah.
Cemetery. I think it was a Catholic cemetery that they dug up.
It was like a Jesuit. Cemetery, I think, where there used to be a Jesuit school there on the grounds. Can we say where that is on the air? Like the designation, like the area in the city, or
it's downtown Kansas City area.
Do you want to talk about the building? The building's quite historical, so I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the building.
No, yeah, go ahead. I don't think that's not untoward.
This is in the quality, what's called the Quality Hill district in Kansas City. And the building's the old Hereford building. Mm-hmm. They call it the old Hereford building, or they don't call it the old Hereford building. It's the Hereford building after the cattle, because it was the home of the nation's very first data processing services and company. The very first data processing ever happened in this building, and it was designed to catalog the genealogy of all of the different breeds of cattle for the because we're a cow town, Kansas.
Yeah, cow towns.
Yep.
So
Huge
consequently,
and it's over the West Bottoms, which is where the stockyards were.
Exactly right, which is kind of creepy in itself. So the idea, of this being having such an integral function within American economy, American food economy, and technology at the time, the building when it was opened for this data processing business, this data processing firm was inaugurated by President Eisenhower himself, like in 1953. I think it was 53, wasn't it, Matt? It was up right around.
You asked me the year. I don't know.
And so it was inaugurated by President Eisenhower. The building opens, breaks, after it's broken ground, fantastic architecture for the time, and they erect this pillar that has this gigantic bull sitting on top of it that kind of like overlooks the skyline. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen imagery of that. Yeah.
So that's the building where Matt and I worked.
Right.
And the building that he's talking about when he's saying they excavated the parking lot. So there's a lot of history that goes behind this, but then going, of course, back into the 19th century. As well. So, Matt, please continue.
So the bull was named Sirloin, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
You got a chuckle. You probably got a chuckle out of that every day, knowing your pun obsession.
No, he's serious though. That's not a joke.
That was seriously his name, and there was like a backup, and I can't remember what the backup, but they had like one in storage too.
Yeah, there was like one in storage. Yeah,
what was its name? I can't remember what its name. It was something equally as witty as that.
I can't remember, but now it's not there anymore. I mean, what did they do?
They moved it over to like the FBI building or something.
Crazy.
Yeah, they moved it.
To Casey Parks and Rec. Let's see. It's at 13th and Summit.
That sounds about right. It's right up 13th. Yeah. It was because it's right there at I-35 and
it's overlooking.
Resides in Mulkey Square, it says.
Okay.
Yeah. So there were accidents associated, a string of
So they were digging up bodies, apparently.
They dug it, and they had like a whole team that came out to investigate it. But when they were digging up the bodies, and I remember this story circulating around was right before they found the first body. Before that happened, like 911 was getting calls from within the building, and it was that when they would answer, nobody would respond. It was just a blank call, but they kept calling. So after so many times of doing that, the police come out to investigate what's going on. Is something, because they got to see if someone is at risk of harm or something. And they get there and they look up the phone number, and the phone number, like the extension, it's from that building, but it's not assigned to anybody. It's just like this empty extension.
Weird.
So that was kind of creepy right before they discover, bodies.
Yeah. I remember that morning, and I had forgotten completely about it until you mentioned it to me, Matt. That was freaking like, it was like a scene out of fucking Poltergeist.
It was weird.
Yeah. You moved the gravestones, but you didn't move them. Yeah.
Basically.
You didn't move the bodies, did you? Yeah.
But we had literally been parking over a cemetery for years.
Yeah. I'm sure that happens a lot more than we think it does in America. Well, just, running out of space and things like that. There's this great documentary I was just watching. I think it was on Netflix or something. It's called Facing East. It's great. I think it's a Louisville, Kentucky, cemetery, historical cemetery, where they were basically reburying plots, and people started figuring out around the 70s or 80s. It's like, according to your records of how many people you have buried there, you have way more than is allotted for like just the square footage of this area. How is this possible? Oh, we keep just finding room. And,
that's a red flag.
Right. And they're finding like, parts of bone and skull and stuff as they're like excavating different areas for like new burials. And the place is just treated just horribly. And it was just this for-profit sort of situation where they didn't care about any of the dignity of burial or anything.
Right.
Oh my God. It's grueling to watch. It really is, but, still interesting. Yeah. I call it Facing East is the name of the film.
Cool. But yeah, we had people like about the time this was going on too. There was like something that was stuff would happen in the building.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember all the things that would happen, but I remember like one person coming in to this door that like it was a metal door, but nobody had ever had any problem with this door before. And all of a sudden it is just like whacking people. And like one girl, I think it was a girl, I can't remember, got sent to the ER because they gashed their head open.
Yeah, wasn't that one of the up front, the desk gals?
Maybe
she was like one of the younger, because you remember what was her name? She was there for years from DST. She was older. She was like the head receptionist there at the old.
Mm-hmm.
You remember who I'm talking about?
I can't remember.
She hired like a 19-year-old, some little thing that was there, and I think that was who it was. Yeah, she was a little wisp of a thing.
Crazy.
Yeah, that makes it really doubly terrifying, right? So you've got this tiny little body and this gigantic metal door. It's like a freight door, right? It was like a freight, one of those.
Yeah. Well, it was like it was a pretty heavy door.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's fucked up.
Yeah, it is.
We survived that. Matt. You and I.
Yeah, we did. We're through
survivors.
There. Yeah. Absolutely. Sirloin and his ghost.
Sirloin's ghost. Yeah. Man, speaking of other things you survived, man, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this. Okay, so Aaron, you grew up it came from Texarkana, right?
I was born in Texarkana, Texas. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just for listeners who aren't familiar, you've got a connection to the Phantom Killer, the Moonlight Murders that occurred there.
I do.
Yeah, you've got to tell people about this. Yeah,
right.
You've got to tell people about this.
Absolutely. So, well, we were talking about the Legend of Boggy Creek. We didn't really talk about. I guess its legacy. I mean, I've got to be I've got to cherry pick, what I can talk about here because, there's so much.
I know why.
There is so much.
I've heard some of these stories on the other.
There's a lot of information about it. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you're familiar with Stephen Bissett. He's a fantastic graphic artist. He was the creator of Swamp Thing for DC Comics. And that, of course, was made into a John Carpenter film with,
I remember that.
In the 80s, right. Well, Steve has written the authoritative book on the Legend of Boggy Creek, on the film, on the making of the film, on the legacy of the film. And he's done it so craftily. I mean, it's a labor of love for him because he loves the project and he loves the book. But he's included some fantastic essays from, and I don't think it's scheduled for a next year release, 2021. But my piece, which you've read, is going to be the introduction for that book. And
it's great. It's good writing.
Right. There's a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it. There's a lot of, so I've got to just pick and choose what I want to talk about. I guess the big takeaways are that The Legend of Boggy Creek was Charles B. Pierce's very first film. He worked in conjunction with my father, John Ball, who was the art director and production designer for the film. They worked together in a small little office, an advertising office at Commercial Art, which was, it was Charlie's office. And Charlie was my father's first employer, and my father was Charlie's first direct report. ever. I mean, so there were these young adults who were, had heard about this legend of this crazy hairy beast roaming the swamps of southwestern Arkansas in their area because it had been reported on going back to the turn of the century.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And, and we're talking about Fouke, Arkansas, where this is all centered. And Fouke has always maintained a population of about 200 to 300 people. So, I mean, it's tiny little place, right? And Charlie was able to procure investment funds through his biggest client at the time, Buddy Ludwell, who had a trucking company. And Charlie had produced this fantastic popular television commercial for the Ludwells, and he got them to believe in him, and so he and my father really kind of dreamed up this idea for this movie while working in that little office, and took $160,000 of the investment money and set out to make a movie. Neither one of them knew a thing about making a movie.
Wow, that's so crazy ambitious and
so ridiculously ambitious. I mean, Charlie did all of his DP work. So Charlie learned. I mean, Charlie sat down with Flo, his wife. They would sit down. He was reading manuals on how to operate this the Panavision 35 millimeter cameras, and and principles of photography. He was already a good photographer, but he was having to learn principles of cinematography, and he taught himself and did all of the, and as you know, having seen the movie, I guess today, right? The restoration. Did you see that? It's fucking gorgeous, right?
Oh, yeah,
right.
Nature shots and the swamp shots, they're
just
beautiful
work. And, and it was really great to be able to do that. So anyway, the legacy behind that film is that it still remains, I believe, the top grossing documentary. If you were to put it in a documentary category, which it doesn't really belong because it was genre defying, right? So it was basically a new genre, the docu drama, right?
Right.
This is what you could call it. I mean, the Blair Witch team, credited Boggy Creek as their principal inspiration because it really does. It created that genre for the first time, but in the genre of documentary, it still remains the highest grossing film of all time.
Wow.
It was the 10th highest grossing film of all in the year of its release in 1972. So that is a very formidable list. I mean, that's a list that includes The Godfather, Cabaret. I think McCabe and Mrs. Miller might have been that year. It was a big year. And so it has a rich legacy there. And culturally, of course, it is single-handedly credited as having been the single biggest catalyst for launching the Bigfoot movement in the 70s.
Yeah, it's canon, absolutely.
Which really dropped. So let's fast forward a bit. Charlie then makes two subsequent films. The Bootleggers and The Winds of Autumn. Before I think Winterhawk may have come also before that, might have been 3, before he moves to another horror-based film. Also having to do with a legend that existed at the going back to the 40s in Texarkana, my hometown of Texarkana. And that was the legend of the Phantom Killer. And it's not so much legend, this particular piece. It's actually based on an actual true story. And
cold case.
There is now evidence to support, there are several people in Texarkana politics who absolutely for sure know who the Phantom Killer actually is. And I've been sworn to secrecy. I also know who the Phantom Killer was.
Wow.
But I would certainly never reveal that. He's deceased now, of course, but
it might affect other people.
Yeah. His reign of terror was, isolated to the 40s, to the wartime era. So, 42 through around the time the war ended for us, maybe a year later, 45 or 46. And he, it was a classic case of a serial killer that absolutely caused extreme panic within the local community in which these killings happened. And the film that was made was The Town That Dreaded Sundown, and
Yes.
has one of the classic in all of horror films, one of the classic murder scenes. And that was actually a scene my father dreamt up involving a trombone. I won't go into detail.
Yes, my favorite scene in the movie.
Thank you. Yes, I have those genes. That comes from my Thank you.
Yeah, accredited by some even as like one of the first slasher films.
Yeah. I think it actually probably did set. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, Psycho, maybe if you look at that.
House on the Left came out, I think, around the same time.
Yeah. But it's certainly in that category. It's, I was well familiar with the film. I've seen it, a few times before I even heard your name from Matt. But as a matter of fact, Matt was mentioning you just a few months ago. And he was like, I know the guy who's like deeply involved in that film. I was like, really? But
yeah. Pretty deeply involved. I mean, because I even though Boggy Creek, I have so many stories about that. Those are really my first memories. But from Boggy Creek, really Charlie's movies. My father worked for Charlie for all through the 70s. So I got to be part of that movie making machine for the first 10 years of my life. So really my first decade of existence was spent on location.
Right.
And I got to learn all of the ins and outs. I mean, I hang with, some really cool people. I mean, Ben Johnson, Academy Award winning actor Ben Johnson, taught me how to play pool, for example.
Wow. Yeah.
Natalie Wood's sister, Lana Wood, who starred in Grey Eagle, taught me how to play backgammon. I was very good friends as a child. I really fell in love with Michael Parks. He became a second dad to me. His son, Jim, you would know Michael Parks. He was from the television show was popular at the time. Then came Bronson. And then he, I think modern day audiences would know him through his connection with Tarantino.
Absolutely. Because
Tarantino, of course, brought him back into the limelight as the sheriff in all of his films. He had a recurring character.
Son of mine. Yep. Yeah. It was and he did a great job with it.
Yeah. And his son, Jim, was his deputy. And Jim, they were inseparable. I mean, he took Jim everywhere with him. It was like, like I take my little dog with me everywhere, right? He took his son everywhere.
That's awesome.
And so, so Jim and I are the same age. And so we buddied up, and I just ended up kind of camping out with Michael and Jim. And of course, that film, The Evictors, featured Jessica Harper. This was the last film I was involved with. I was actually in every single shot in that film. Funny story, you'll never see me. The only part you see of me is a handwritten note that's scrawled supposedly from the killer to the owners or the renters of the house they want them to move from. The evictors, right? Whoever decided to make a horror story around someone who wanted to evict someone. I mean, now's the time. But there's so I was able to write the scrawled hand note that said, "I want you to move."
That's awesome.
My handwriting was atrocious. Oh my God. So they were like, "Yep, serial killer."
Wow,
so
did that leave you with a complex growing up? Like, I've got to have good handwriting. I can't.
I've never had good handwriting. It's horrible.
I haven't either. My parents used to tell me, "You'll make a great doctor," and I always took that as a compliment.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, that's interesting because my signature, people now say, "Wow, that's a great signature." But I remember being very ashamed of it because people would say, "Oh my God, what is that?" Or like, "Is that a Rorschach? What is that?" So I think that changed probably when I got older and started hanging around adults. But So, yeah, that starred Jessica Harper, and I think just a funny bookend to my career in film is that one of my favorite movies ever is Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise.
Yes.
And I love that movie from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And the great joy for me, one of the great joys of being in The Ghastly Love of Johnny X, which had its premiere in 2012, was that my scenes were with Paul Williams.
Paul Williams, yes.
And, he was just, such an incredible guy to work with. And I'm really happy that I had that experience and that I have him, that I count him as a friend. And he's just a stellar, top-notch individual. But the person who was originally slotted to play Queen Betty in The Ghastly Love of Johnny X was Jessica Harper. So, yeah. So the crazy thing about that, whenever I watch Phantom of the Paradise, is like, you know what? I've been in a movie with both of the leads in my favorite movie. Who gets that opportunity?
Right.
I mean, granted, one was 1979 and the other was 2012, but neither here nor there.
Still, it counts.
Yeah.
I've spoken too much. I think I need guidance from the hosts.
No, we're wanting to get some of these stories, and I have like very fond memories of. We got close enough when we were working together that we'd hang out occasionally, and you would have these awesome movie nights at your house that I felt really fortunate to be invited to. I came to a couple, I think. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't remember you coming. That's great. Was that at the house on up in Briarcliff?
Yeah, there was that one. I think there was 2 houses that I actually went to. Well, but you'd project it on the side of the house. And we'd sit out in the yard. I remember breaking out a sword and champagne one night. And having...
Well, one of those movies may have been The Town That Dreaded Sundown.
Yeah, it was. And we watched that, and I think a couple of times we watched that one.
Probably, yeah. I have a great 16 millimeter print of that film, a reduction print from the 35. And it's and I love that film because it's a Technicolor print. So, it's got eye-popping color and it projects really well. It's beautiful. It's an anamorphic, it's in scope.
Yeah.
And so it projects a really nice big image. Love that fucking film. Love screening it.
Yeah.
I've screened it so many times for audience.
Oh, that was so much fun. Yeah, I know. I went to at least a couple of those and I had a blast every time.
I love the narration. Yeah, I love the narration in that film. But like I say, I've always loved that film kind of independently of knowing you or Matt just bringing you up. That's why it was so interesting to me because that's been one of my cult favorites.
It's great. Did you see the remake?
No, I didn't. I considered renting it, but I was like, no, I'd rather,
Yeah.
How is it? Yeah, I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either. Well, that's why I'm asking because I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I never.
No, I was interested too. Mainly just see if they do anything with a trombone tribute.
Did they? Do you know if they?
I don't know. No idea.
Okay, well, that'll be a project.
That'll be a project. Maybe I'll watch it at Halloween.
Yeah, I think I read that it wasn't actually a remake. That it was kind of like a I don't know, like a so many years later kind of thing. That it was kind of sequel-esque. But
okay.
Not really. Yeah, I don't know. But Steve Lyons was Flo. So Charlie's wife, Flo, has a brother. Well, she's deceased now, but her brother's still alive, Steve. And Steve was the teenager in The Town That Dreaded Sundown. He was also the teenager in The Legend of Boggy Creek.
Yes.
So, he was typecast forever as the teenager, even beyond his teenage years. And so in The Town That Dreaded Sundown, there's that wonderful scene in Lover's Lane where he is one of the first murders.
Right, really. That's the big, that's where you're like, oh, shit.
Radio lap scene.
Yeah. So you're going to see him as he's pulled out of the car by the Phantom Killer in that scene. That take, when he's being pulled out of the car, he actually broke his arm.
Ooh, ouch.
Yeah.
Nice.
During
going.
that, I mean, he was in and kept on freaking going. So what you're seeing there is like some serious hardcore shit.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's a snuff film.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those. Yeah. And
that's so fun, especially when somebody's receptive to it. If somebody's like, oh yeah, whatever, if they're, act turned off by the fact that they don't know. But if somebody's receptive to doing that, I love introducing people to films.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And, and so we had about 30 of them on the watch list. And, of course, my biggest priority was to hit up the shared universe, of course, because those films always, I remember being my favorite as a kid. Frankenstein meets Wolfman and House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. And
Bride of.
These fantastic movies where, all the monsters converge and fight each other and all that sort of thing. It's a lot of fun. But there were some movies in that series that I do not recall seeing, and probably for good reason.
Yeah.
I mean, the Mummy franchise. Mm-hmm. Oh, ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
It's funny to find out. Yeah.
It's funny that I've noticed too that there's a lot of like jokes alluding to that going into like modern horror films or like even like kids cartoons. It's like, what does a mummy actually do to you? I don't know.
But they're scary.
But they're scary for some reason.
They're really scary. They're dead. And they're scary.
But,
do they eat you? Do they kill you? No, I don't think so. But I'm not sure.
But it's been a lot of fun, specifically also because we're using our VR headsets to watch these together.
Nice.
Yeah, in big screen, because big screen's just fantastic. It's opened up a whole new world for being able to see these movies as they were originally intended to be seen, which is on big screens. And it's been a lot of fun for me seeing some of these films for the first time on a big screen. Has been a real kick. But I already have the next 2 years. This is how freaking, ridiculous I am. I have the next 2 Halloweens. Yeah. The next 2 Octobers planned out in terms of our watching. Yeah. So next year will be, as many of the Hammer horror films as we can squeeze in. And then the year after that is going to be exclusively foreign language. So we'll work mostly, Le Diabolique, a lot of the classics, but definitely going to use Argento as the centerpiece for our foreign language film watching. Yep.
Yeah. We need to find a jumping back in point.
I think we're leading to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We talked about, Ghastly Love. We were talking about that a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
So that's one thing you got to mention, though, the cinematic history of it that we were talking about last night. The fact that it was the last film shot on Plus X, in black and white.
Plus X. Yeah, funny story about that. This is why the Johnny X is. We got a huge write up in American Cinematographer. We were actually featured on as the feature story for CBS Sunday Morning or whatever it is with Bill Geist on Oscar Sunday.
Cool.
Yeah, in 2012, because of just, the noteworthy, the academic noteworthy and aesthetic noteworthy aspect of the fact that, Plus X was discontinued. The year right before the film went into production, the film was discontinued. Now, there's a storied... The film has just a storied history in terms of its production. Production work actually started in 2006. And of course, completion. I was brought on initially as an executive producer because would have been back in 2007 because before it went into major production, because I had procured the person who was going to bring in completion financing for the film.
Nice.
He was a colleague a gentleman with whom I was not only friends, but had done some business with. It was a medical doctor who got to the point where he even wrote a letter of intent for providing completion funds for the film. And then he was caught lying to a grand jury.
Oh, no.
Because the pharmaceutical company he was working for at the time, he had falsified documents to fast track a drug to get approval through the FDA, and lied about it to a grand jury when he was called in as a witness.
Ooh, that's not good for your career.
And what we discovered was that he, was looking for a way to shelter a lot of his cash. So hold on for just a second. My dog is losing his shit.
That's all right.
No,
Arthur,
we've had it.
What's up? Come here. Come into the studio. Come into the studio with Papa. Come on. Come in here. I'll let you in here. Come on. It gives you food and comfort and drink. Okay. Hi, guys. I'm back.
Hi.
Hello.
I've got my boy with me, Arthur.
Right on.
Arthur Edwin. So, okay.
That's good.
But anyway, as we were saying, I don't remember.
That's all very Ed Wood.
Right.
Oh yeah. So he goes off to prison, and I lose my my investor, and so I will never ever be a film producer in this town. Because of that track record. But
wow.
And didn't you guys have to scramble to find all the film?
We did.
Yeah,
we did because the stock had been discontinued. The biggest problem was that it had been hoarded, and the stock that had eventually been hoarded was hoarded by the production team of a small film that actually swept the award season that year, The Artist.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? That was a silent film.
Right.
And they had hoarded the stock because they wanted to because that is the classic cinema black and white stock, right? That's what all classic black and white films have been shot on, including contemporary ones. I mean, Raging Bull, you mentioned Schindler's List. We think about Manhattan. We think about all of the classic contemporary films. And then also, of course, the classic films from the Golden Age. All of these are, have a rich history with Plus X. So the production team for The Artist gave up after hoarding a lot of the stock. They gave up on the idea of shooting on the stock because they realized that they wouldn't have enough footage. They wouldn't have enough of the stock to shoot on. So they actually shot The Artist in color and digitized it to black and white. And it's very disappointing to me when I see that film. Otherwise it's a beautiful film, and I highly recommend it. But I see the artifacts, the digital artifacts of the transcoding and the color desaturation. You can tell that it wasn't shot in black and white. You can tell that the lighting wasn't designed with black and white in mind. The costume, the color palette, which should be very specific for black and white films. I've talked to people about this, and they're like, why is there a color palette if it's being shot in black and white?
I think a lot of them would understand if they watched Johnny X, especially a film that is designed for black and white shots. And you can tell that in the way that every shot is framed, where the costuming is, even the classic cars they pick.
Francisco Bucarelli, the fantastic cinematographer, DP Francisco Bucarelli was he's spectacular. His work in black and white is unparalleled. It's really, really well shot and well thought of. And they used the same, tried to go back. I mean, historically accurately reproduce the, color makeup for Frankenstein's monster for Creed in that film. So if you were I was there in the dressing room with him. I directed and shot all of the behind the scenes. So, and the EPK work for the film. So I had a little production team that was working in tandem with the major production team. So I had my sound person, I had my boom operator, I had all of my little production crew.
Mhm.
And as Mr. Projector, my alter ego, I was going through and interviewing the various cast members, and you didn't get to see this because I think you rented it. But if you get the DVD, hasn't been released on Blu-ray yet, but if you get the DVD version of it, all of the behind the scenes, all of the extras, all of the special features are mine. I mean, I produced, directed, wrote, and starred in all of those, and it was my idea to make them narrative. To give the special features like another dimension of the film.
Right.
Because I felt like it deserved that, that extra something that hadn't been done before. Where you get a little something truly extra by watching the special features because you learn a little bit more about the movie from the character that's in the movie, right? So it becomes then an extension of the film and not just a commentary on the film. And, but yeah, so Creed Bratton's makeup was actually pretty hardcore, authentically the same type of makeup that, in terms of color, that Frankenstein's monster was, because and the reason why we see Frankenstein's monster green, the reason why we see him green in color ads or in marketing promos is because green translates in black and white. It's the closest color we can get to the look of dead flesh.
Right. Yeah, there's a thing too, just like with the manufacturer of guitars and instruments, they call TV yellow, where you see all these old classic like 50s and 60s guitars that had this kind of, pukish yellow color. And people thought it was just, that must have been a popular color at the time. It's like, no, it's because when it showed up the best in contrast on black and white film. And that's why they created those guitars that way. And it's like,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, from that perspective, it's really kind of cool. So anyway, so the artist was hoarding this footage, the stock, they let it go. And so consequently, when they let go of their treasure trove that they couldn't use, and because of the extra footage there, and because of the production of the artist was exclusively in France, the Johnny X team was able to salvage the last remaining scraps enough to finish the film in Paris. So that's where they were, where the remainder of the Plus X was.
Wow.
But yeah, it's historic for that reason. It's also groundbreaking and notorious in that it takes the record as being the lowest grossing film of 2012. Yeah, seriously.
It's an honor.
No, I mean, if you look at the list, the official list, I think there's one that comes in above that is a movie called Paycheck. I think it was I got a stellar cast. It was like Bruce Willis or something. I can't remember who was in that movie, but I didn't see it. But the lowest gross. The reason why that is, here's a Kansas connection for you. So it did really well on the festival circuit. People ate it up. I mean, it was a hot film that summer in 2012, and I actually followed it around and did Q&A panels and got to see some really fun theaters across the country in helping to represent the movie, and it was a wonderful ride, and audiences, it was picking up awards, right? Awards for its killer soundtrack. Ego Plum is, man, he's just like out there, and he is so freaking talented. I fucking love him. I mean, I love him as a human being, but I also love his body of work. He is picking up awards for really everything. So came time to, we were still looking for a distributor, couldn't find anybody who wanted to touch it because it was in black and white. That was the big holdup. Nobody wanted to touch a black and white film. So that was the big holdup. So we get to one of the final festivals we played, and it was the Kansas International Film Festival. And that was that whole festival that year, this would have been 2012, was at the Glen Arts Theater.
Oh, off like 90.
Right, 95th and Metcalf. But you remember it wasn't, but they had moved by then because, the sign, right? The sign was historic. There was this big old drama about when the theater shut down, what are you going to do with the sign? So they moved the sign to another theater, like across the way, that was kind of in a strip mall.
Yeah.
And they called it the new Glen Arts or whatever it was called. Well, anyway, that's the theater.
I saw the first movie I ever saw with my wife in that theater.
Oh, did you? What was it? What was the movie?
It was what was the movie where he's in love with his doll?
Lars and the Real
like the
Girl.
Lars and the Real Girl.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was screening at that theater, and I serendipitously invited all of my friends from high school. Because I went to high school in Overland Park at Shawnee Mission West. And so the Glen Arts was that was my movie theater. The original one was my movie theater. It's where I spent my weekends when I was in high school. And so I was like, oh, this is like a total freaking homecoming, right?
Yeah. Right.
I'm in this movie, invite all of my friends from high school who still live in the area, and let's freaking show out and have a big time. Well, a lot of them came. And, they filled out the little cards, and it ended up winning the audience award for the entire Kansas International Film Festival.
Wow.
As a result,
Nice.
the winner of the Kansas International Film Festival circuit, that audience award winner, that winning gig, the award for that was that the film was to be given a week run officially on the books on the box office in that theater. So it opened officially nationwide at the Glen Arts in fucking Overland Park, Kansas.
That's crazy.
For a week, and exactly 2 people showed up.
Oh no.
The movie made $17, I think.
Oh wow! So that's your box. So that's your box office record.
So that's how it ended up being the lowest grossing film at the box office.
Awesome.
Oh, that's
It's
great.
because 2 people showed up to see it on its 1 week run. So what pissed me off about it was that all these articles started coming out. There was even an article in the fucking New York Times out about the worst movie of 2012.
Yeah.
It's like,
Based on what?
Rewind? Worst movie? You mean the lowest
Grossing.
Grossing,
Big
right.
difference.
Mhm.
How on what planet do you equate quality with, box office returns?
Right.
Well, that's kind of tells you about the world we live in.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, how many Lamborghinis did they sell versus how many?
Well, and
Hyundais,
also too, I don't think people realize that, that movies can have this entirely separate parallel life that is a successful life outside of mainstream commercial, the mainstream commercial
Absolutely.
machine that drives that industry.
Right. Look at how many musical artists have huge careers, but were never a commercial success.
Right.
And then when the industry doesn't get it, they just call it a cult classic or a
Right.
That's absolutely right. I think, interestingly enough, those artists tend to be my favorite.
Yeah, right.
Artists working. And I suppose that's in my blood too. I mean, just kind of going back full circle to Charlie Pierce, he is known as the father of American independent cinema. Right. And he's known as the father of American independent cinema because he was really the first director to go rogue and make commercial hits. I mean, big commercial hits. When you can say that your film is, the 9th or 10th highest grossing film in a box office year.
Right.
You have done everything yourself. That that gives you the title of father or grandfather.
Right, it gives you some credibility for sure.
Yeah. So, that's, I kind of think I've got that in my blood. My father was the same way, in terms of his relentless approach for doing things himself. It's a blessing and a curse. I will tell you that. I mean, I see that in my companies, the companies that I run. I have to really be guarded and careful about how I approach a rehearsal process if I'm performing, how I manage my daily tasks, like necessary things like getting laundry off and back and food prepared and, accounts taken care of, because I have a very difficult time delegating. And, so that's the curse part of it. But the blessing part of it is that I'm very pleased generally with the end result of my work. But man, yeah, the delegation thing has got to 2021. That's my word for 2021 is delegate. I've got to start letting go of some of these ownership aspects. But yeah, it's in my blood. I mean, this idea that you get out there, you innovate your way through a thing, you create, you innovate, and you come up with the next big thing. It's a driving factor for me. It gets me off,
Yeah. Well, and that we help each other too in the community. And I think that's important. Absolutely. Just let us know if there's anything we need to plug of yours or it's kind of
or if you have any great ideas for, getting podcasts out there.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's, that's part of it, isn't it? It's how, this is part of the marketing machine. It's how do we, in this day and age, leverage the tools that we have in social media? How do we leverage the tools that we have in terms of getting exposure? Right. Exposure is a big part of it. But of course, you have to have something valuable to say at the heart of it. And that's something that I've been exploring in myself and, just recently another project. I've got so many freaking projects, guys, but one of my projects in terms of the narration aspect, audiobook narration is narrating. That was a stomach growl. Let me say that again. So one of my favorite, projects that I'm working on now is tapping into the audiobook narration aspect, but that's narrating a story that I wrote. Golly, I think I wrote it in probably 91 or 92. And it won a couple of awards. I had a couple of professors say that I needed to seriously pursue publication. Because they thought it was really good. And I recently reread this story. I wrote it as I wanted to write a ghost story. And so I ended up writing, I just caught fire and wrote the story. And it wasn't the story so much as the form that I looked about it. I guess it's what I love about 20th and 21st century musical idioms and, how Schoenberg and Berg totally changed things up with 12 tone and created a new musical language. In effect, they created a puzzle for us to figure out. And I kind of wanted to do the same thing from a literature standpoint. I wanted to write a story that caused the reader to be an active participant in the story in terms of trying to really put the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out what the damn thing was really all about. And I've had readers who've read it who are absolutely infuriated with it. I've had friends who've read it and they're like, "That's how it ends? What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but the answers that you're seeking are in the story. You just have to look for them." And then I've had other friends who are like, "Holy fuck, that is the most brilliant thing I've ever read." But it's really kind of fun. So I thought, wow, well, I've got a box like, no, that's a lie. I have like 3 or 4 gigantic boxes of writing. I mean, I've written screenplays, I've written stage plays, I've written a couple of novels, countless short stories. I've been a prolific writer all of my life. And this one story just called to me about, right around the time of March. We were, getting into the pandemic, and I was like, I need to really start tapping into my body of work and seeing how I can start monetizing things. And I think that's critical for everyone right now. If I could just make a little public service announcement to your listeners really quickly, please, please, please take a self-assessment. Do a self-assessment. Look at what you're good at doing. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Tap into your talents. We've got to start monetizing what we do because it's going to be an individual-based economy to a great extent when we come out of this. And we need to prepare ourselves now for that. So it was a kind of a part of that, but I reread this story and I went, holy cow, why am I not reading this? Like out loud, like narrating it. I mean, that's what I'm doing for other people. Why shouldn't I be doing that for my own work?
Yeah.
So I crawled into the studio and sat down and I made myself read through the story, and I thought, holy crap, I'm reading this better than I've read anybody else's work.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder why. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it came from me. So I'm also an actor, and I'm a voice actor as well. So it kind of like all of these things converged. And I thought, wow, what can I do with this? It's got to be more than just an audio book. So then I started researching, thinking, what ultimately what it's going to be. It's going to be a multimedia app. So it's going to be an app that I'm developing that is media rich. So it's going to have, of course, the spoken audio narration with some light music scoring. And then it's also going to be featuring some knockout illustrations by one of my favorite artists, Elie Jelinet. He's a Mexican artist who is he's been featured at the Louvre. He's lives right here in Long Beach, and he's doing some fantastic work. And I'm just so thrilled to have him in my life, not just as a friend, but again, it's like my life coach and friend, in New Jersey, who happens to be my favorite soprano. Well, Eddie happens to be one of my favorite artists, and
that's awesome.
He's producing a couple of full color illustrations. He works mostly in oil and acrylic, and a lot of some mixed media. But he's fantastic, and he's doing some pen and ink as well. So all of that's going to come together in an app that someone can download from their phone.
Awesome. Well, that sounds great.
Their iPad, and they can experience my story called The Box. Yeah, but that's a fun project that I'm.
Yeah,
no, that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
If you get anything rolling with that, and you need extra voiceover help, let us know.
Sure,
we love shit like that.
Wonderful to hear. Wonderful to know. Do you know life is full of unexpected surprises and just completely unexpected. What this reminds me of, I was taking a business flight for the company we used to work for it was Scranton, Pennsylvania. So Western Pennsylvania, and trying to get back. This would have been in the dead of winter, trying to get back to KC. And the little plane I'm in, it wasn't that little. I mean, there were, I think, 63 of us logged as passengers, but it reached 20,000 feet cruising altitude when it lost all pressure. I mean,
holy crap,
compressed and started nosediving.
Oh my God.
And it was apparent to everybody that we were going down. And the captain, first time I ever recall having a female pilot, got on the PA system and said, I can remember just as plane it's just clear, right? So clear in my mind because, I think our brains record these kinds of experiences in ways that are actually probably encoded in our DNA and passed on to our offspring. Which might account for, it's a genetic memory is what they call it. I think it might account for a lot of what we consider phobias now. They're reality based. But
sure.
She said very calmly, we're the plane's going down. And I'm going to try my best to get us to the Harrisburg airport safely and do what you need to do.
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
You would imagine, anybody would imagine, I know I would have imagined that there would have been complete chaos in the cabin of that plane.
Right.
It was stone cold silent.
Mm-hmm.
It was not, you couldn't hear anyone breathe.
Wow.
I mean, it was just the silence is what I remember as the plane's going down, as fucking the oxygen masks are dropping. And we've just been told that the plane's going down. It's going to make an emergency landing. And not a sound. That's unexpected.
Yeah.
That's the first time I remember thinking, wow, that's not how it would be in a movie.
Right.
Right.
But, everybody was doing what I was doing, I think.
Yeah.
Thinking. Yeah.
Thinking. Right?
Yeah.
We all got drunk. Boys, let me tell you, that plane landed at Harrisburg. There were news trucks. We were on the evening news. What had happened was, I guess, it was either an ice pellet or a bird or a combination of an ice pellet and a bird had shattered the cockpit window.
Oh my
God.
We walked out of that thing and looked back, and there was a hole the size of a basketball.
Jeez.
In the cockpit of that. Yeah.
Wow. That's an amazing pilot then.
Exactly. Imagine piloting that. So we all, they put us up at the little, whatever it was, Ramada, whatever. And first place, all of us went to the car.
Yeah.
Right. That was like, there was no stop, no passing go. None. I don't even think we even went to our rooms. We were right at the bar and we got to know each other, then. We all kind of just stood around and went, holy fuck, we just survived that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it created this bond. Some of us even wrote to each other a little bit, but that was early. It was before social media. So it was before, we didn't imagine in this day and age, we'd be together for life.
Yeah.
Right.
And that interesting moment of, I don't know if there's kind of an acceptance that comes to it. And I've been through something, not the same, but I remember I was clobbered, by a drunk driver. One time, and I walked away from it. I was very lucky.
What do you mean, clobbered?
I remember,
road rage? Like some driver,
I was on I-35 actually, coming back home, and there was a huge traffic jam. It was on the Kansas side, and you could see the traffic jam from like a mile back. It was like really, really obvious in the car. So I stop, and this driver behind me doesn't notice it until the last second, and like literally, I realize what's happening when I hear and everything just goes into slow motion, and I look in the mirror and I just realize there is absolutely not a fucking thing that you can do about this. Right? You are completely just at the whim of the moment, and you might as well just relax. And it was slow motion, but I'm sure it was actually very fast, but it really felt like time slowed down. So instead of stressing over it, I was just like, fuck, I just got to go with this.
Yeah. I wonder if that saved your life because,
it might have. Like, I relaxed.
What were the injuries?
Like? My car was totaled.
But you
and I realized, I wasn't hurt. My back was sore. I went to a chiropractor for a while, but that was it.
Yeah,
but
it could have been so much worse.
My car was an accordion. Like, my driver's seat was just like the back of it, and I didn't even realize it until I got out. Like, holy shit, it won't come back up.
Yeah.
So it hit hard enough to fuck up my driver's seat.
Are you a singer?
No.
I'm asking,
I wish you were.
Trained singers, I think we would fare better in car crashes and that sort of thing, just quite simply because we go through extensive training, at least in opera, on Alexander technique, for example, these exercises and practices that allow us to not utilize our musculature or our energy without purpose or intent, so that we're not overutilizing aspects of our body that we don't need to.
Yeah, well, the acting can kind of be the same thing, and I've got a degree in theater, and I did choir and stuff.
Yeah, but it stems from acting. Alexander, stems from acting.
Right.
So, John Alexander was an actor, but it was, that learning to make efficient use of one's body, I think, especially in times of anxiety or stress, where because you've practiced over and over and over again to relax at exactly those moments, can be probably life-saving in terms of, or at least not debilitating if certain circumstances. But
no, it was just instinct, really. Just like you got no choice. You got to go with this.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I agree with that. I felt the same way. I had an accident in Northridge, and an automotive transport truck. One of those gigantic trucks that transports cars. I was on the 34. I was going to Burbank from Northridge, from up in the valley. Well, all of it's in the valley. And I look in my rearview mirror. I'm driving the speed limit. I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and this automotive transport truck is getting closer and closer and faster and faster. Tail. And I'm like, what the fuck is this thing doing? And I'm like, I feel like I need to speed up. So I'm kind of speeding up just because I didn't want him to crash. But then he sped up faster than I sped up. And he rammed me from behind. I mean, just plowed into me on the freeway and totaled my car. But it was one of those situations where it was like Duel, or one of those, the Spielberg. Yeah. It was like one of these movies where I'm looking in the rearview mirror and I'm seeing what's about to happen. Right? I know this is going to happen. This guy is going to plow into me. And I see it happening. I just know it's going to happen. So like you, it was like one of those moments where it's like, nice big singer breath and just lean into it.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, but so I totally get that. And that probably saved me from some pretty serious physical issues. But all right.
So everybody just relax. Breathe.
Yeah, relax, breathe.
Yes. And the plane's not going down yet.
Right? No. And it's going to be different after Tuesday. So we'll just.
Sure.
Absolutely.
All right.
Oh, that's probably a good place to bring it to a close.
Time. I had a great time, Aaron. It's good to get to know you.
John, fantastic. Matt.
Yeah. Man, it's been too long since we actually caught up. So I'm really glad that we got a chance to do that.
And how fun to be able to do it through this medium, it's really fun.
Yeah.
And when it's all cleared up and you're stopping back in KC, we'll go grab a drink.
Sounds great.
That sounds fantastic. I so many great places I remember that I love there.
Yeah. You took me to a few of them.
I did. Oh, good. I can't remember. That's probably a sign that we had a blast.
We had some fun.
All right. So, what was the one place I loved at Union Station Point?
Pierpont's.
Pierpont's. Love it. God, love that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And John, you're in
Columbia.
Yeah, you're in Columbia. With a U. Yes.
With a U. Yep. Not that far south, but yeah.
Right. Well, gentlemen, it's been fantastic. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on.
You're right.
Yep. Everybody again, Aaron Ball. Thank you for joining us on Undetermined, the podcast. Everybody have a happy Halloween and a good night.
Thank you for having me. Everybody, keep your eyes peeled for phantom killers and things that go bump in the night. Ciao, gentlemen.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Bye. Nice.
I heard a huge organ.
Oh gosh, doggone! I didn't mean to talk about myself again. It just.
Oh no, we saw the opera scene. So
shit, I'll never. No, it was a choice. It was a choice. But you know what? It was the director's choice. It was ultimately my choice, but it was the director's. Of course, that's what the director wanted. That production was really a freaking cool production. It was the principal influences for that production were the two Fellini films, La Dolce Vita and 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very, very firmly set in 1962. And so I even had a 1962 VW Bug that was like one of the Italian release bugs.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, so it was a convertible, and I drove it on stage at the top of the second act.
Oh, wow.
It was so freaking awesome. It was just a really freaking cool production. But yeah, the director, he said, okay, it's like early in the rehearsal process, and he said, here's my idea. I mean, you just came out of a sexual assault situation that kind of was, kind of wasn't. She was into it, and then last minute she freaks out and starts screaming, and you're just coming out of her. I mean, you've just had sex.
That's the scene. That's the scene where like you're trying to seduce the commandante's daughter, and like you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think
traditionally.
It's yeah. So I've just come out of her bedroom. We've just fucked.
Okay.
And so, he's got to fucking get the hell out of there. So it kind of made sense. It's like, well, he's not really going to have time to put on his fucking pants.
Right.
So, I mean, it really did make sense. And then when you really think about the setting in 1960, and we set it in Rome, in downtown Rome, close to the fountain. Right. And so, yeah, it was really cool.
You said there were some addendums that you wanted to put on to Boggy Creek and Town of the Dreaded Sundown. So, first of all, the cat. Let's address that.
Yeah.
So,
right. Everybody loves the freaking cat in that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was doing a lot of the Q&As for the 4K revival screenings, I didn't do any of the Alamo Drafthouse screenings. I mean, I played all of the Alamo Drafthouses across the country last year. And then, I was telling Matt, we premiered the 4K restoration at the Perot Theater, which was the theater the movie actually premiered at in 1972. And
in Texarkana, right?
In Texarkana, yeah. So this was only the second time I'd seen that movie in that theater, and probably the fourth time I'd been to that theater. Beautiful. Used to be old Paramount Studios theater that they completely overhauled during the silent era, and that's and put a really nice big organ in it. So in my experience in going and seeing audiences' reactions, their responses during the screenings of this film, which is not like, if everybody who is used to who has seen Boggy Creek, the memories of that movie will probably be based on these horrible third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation bootleg copies or prints, most of them derivative from television prints, which of course is an improper aspect ratio. The colors shot, you can't even make heads or tails out of some of the, I mean, it was like seeing a freaking brand new movie. I mean, it was just it's just cinematography. The direction's fantastic. But anyway, my experience is that audiences have a real response to that cat. That it's a laugh out loud moment, right? You see this cutaway of this terrified cat that was supposedly scared to death.
Yeah.
And it's just fucking funny. Well, it was supposed to be funny, right?
Sure.
So it wasn't. I mean, it was my father, as production designer and art director, his biggest challenge with that was finding a dead cat, first of all. Because,
right.
you can't kill a cat.
Right.
So he had to find a dead cat, and none of the dead cats that he found looked as though they had been scared to death.
Jesus.
He had to have, and so he found one that came close, and he tried to twist it and bend it and get it in the right shape, and it just crackled and popped, and it was stiff, and it basically crumbled away. So what he figured out, I don't know how he figured it out. If he just, it was my father. He was like a crazy MacGyver when it comes to this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He figured out that if he froze the cat, like froze it, like got it ice frozen, and then set it out to thaw again, that it would become malleable, and he could shape it into whatever fucking shape he wanted.
That's crazy.
So he basically got the cat to look exactly the way he wanted by freezing it and thawing it out again.
Oh my gosh.
But everybody
probably lasted longer that way too.
Probably.
So.
I think it was right around, it was the very next film, maybe. It might have been the one before that. The Boggy Creek was first. Yeah, it might have been the one after that. It might have been Winds of Autumn, or the Bootleggers, probably Winds of Autumn, where he started having to put the disclaimers on his films.
No animals were
harmed. And, But my father really honed a craft in working with dead animals in these films throughout the 70s, Gray Eagle, and he got really good at it. Yeah. But all of the animals, none of them were harmed at the time of the filming. Most all of them were roadkill. So my father did pick most of them off the side of the road. But, but yeah, so that's the story behind the cat. The other thing, that I think really excites people, gets people energized, because not many people realize that this was Ralph McQuarrie's first work as a movie poster illustrator. So this was his very first movie poster that he did. And he pretty much everything after Boggy Creek, he painted in acrylic specifically for graphic design printing, but Boggy Creek was his only oil painting. So that is actually an oil on canvas, and it's a freaking gorgeous painting.
It's a beautiful painting. Yeah, it's a very iconic image.
Yeah, Pam was able to acquire the original painting that the poster was printed from.
Wow.
And we actually had that displayed there in Texarkana last year.
So cool.
But the great thing about Ralph, he's, he, for the people who aren't familiar with his body of work, was the production designer and concept artist for all of the Star Wars films. So for Lucas, so he basically created the look for all of these iconic characters: C-3PO, R2-D2, Chewbacca. Well, Chewbacca, of course, you can draw a through line from the Falcon Monster to Chewbacca several years later as really being the Chewbacca's prototype. So Ralph was really, that was his concept art. That was his idea that eventually developed into Chewbacca. My father, as art director, of course, was tasked with taking McQuarrie's concept in design and then actually transferring it to the screen and making it something that was photographable and that looked somewhat real. And so my father actually constructed that ape suit. It was an ape suit. It was like an ape, an ape suit, but it was outfitted. Of course, he put hair on it. He put a wig on it. He did all sorts of crazy things to it to get it to its final, what we see today in the screen.
Put it in the freezer.
So when we're, hey, if you ever come across a Bigfoot, and you need one hell of a big freezer for that, but it's, I think it's really interesting to see this butterfly effect, if you will, in cinema that has, we wouldn't have Chewbacca had we not had the preliminary concept work for the Falcon Monster from McQuarrie, and we would not have docudrama if we didn't have the invention of it from Charles Pierce in this highly successful, still today probably the most successful independent film ever made.
Yeah.
Wow.
In terms of box office. So yeah, those are things.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. Very impressive things. Interesting. Yeah. Did you ever have a prints made of the oil painting or?
Yeah.
There have been new prints made. So you can go to the legendofbuggycreek.com. I think it's just legendofbuggycreek.com, which is where Pam and my really, really great friend, Lyle Blackburn. Lyle actually runs that website, and he is responsible for all of the merch, including the new Blu-rays, before they get licensed for distribution. There's several distribution deals for major retailers for the Blu-ray that are in the works right now. But right now, you can get your hot clutches on the Blu-ray by going to that website, including merch, including, I believe, the new prints, the new poster prints that have been struck from the
wow.
opening.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'd love to have one in my house.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to sign it for us.
I would love to. There are a lot of those things floating around out there. So yeah, Lyle runs that. Yeah, check out Lyle Blackburn and Ghoultown too.
Yeah, for sure.
Shameless plug for them. Lyle, I stay with him every time I go when I go visit that neck of the woods. My cousins are there as well. I have family still there in the Texarkana area, Dallas and Texarkana.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Dallas friends of the podcast.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And so they would be very familiar then probably with Lyle. He's comes from a tradition of horror rock. So, you think about the Misfits, you think about, a lot of these quintessential horror rock bands. And so Ghoultown is very much steeped in that tradition, but they're just doing some really crazy stuff. And I think his album, new album, it's been a couple of years, just released a couple of days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. Yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So did your dad ever travel with the dead cat?
Did he travel with the cat?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
I'm sure that as soon as that cat was shot, I'm sure it was exposed. I cannot imagine that cat.
I just wondered, would you pack that away or would it be carrion?
Oh, God.
Yes.
The longest setup for a Matt. The longest setup for a Matt pun. I think
that was excellent, my friend. Excellent.
I think my tongue is pushed through my cheek. I'm going to go check the mirror. Oh, it's strained. I know that.
I don't know, but it also, it just would have ended up being dead weight.
Oh, God.
That would have been catastrophic.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Catastrophic. Oh my God!
Not to pussyfoot around the subject, but I mean,
yeah.
Jeez,
now we're doing.
No, I'm stopping it right there.
You're killing me.
I'm making a feline for the door.
Walking a fine feline. Yeah. All right, we've exhausted that. I think.
Yeah. I think the moment he said it. Yeah.
What else did I say I wanted to touch base on? It was just those 2 points, right?
I think it was. But that's really cool. Yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, the fans love it. I'm trying to think, was there anything? Yeah, there's so many fun little stories about the movie that we've been sharing and talking about, since I've reunited with my screen mother and all of our, the cast. It's been a lot of fun. We initially went to Dallas. This would have been in 2015. Let's see. The George Eastman Museum started restoration work on this. I want to say in would have been early 2018, I think. Yeah, so it had to have been that summer because 2019 would have been when we premiered the restoration. Yeah. So it was probably probably a year or some months before that where a bunch of us went back to work with a production crew in Texarkana to do interviews for the behind the scenes, the special features. And
I did want to let you know, by the way, when you had told me, it's like, no, you're watching the restoration, right? You're not watching the old one because it's like if you have a Roku device, Do check it out, because there are some shitty old recordings that are being thrown around on Roku. I didn't rent that one. Yeah, they're free. They're actually on like Freeview type apps.
Okay,
like Waveform,
I'll make sure and
I'll
make sure and get that information to Pam. Pam's been like super diligent about.
Have Pam.
You can see why.
Yeah. And have her go through a Roku stick and just hit a Roku search, and it'll show you like there's these, these fly by night kind of apps that have all sorts of Freeview stuff that are just filled with ads and everything else. But there are some still flying around out there. I didn't rent that one. I mean, I rented the one through Apple, but
that's good. That's good to know. I mean, I have an Apple TV, and I have a friend who has a Roku, but I think Apple TV kind of does the same sort of thing.
Yeah. I've got a Roku TV, but it has the Apple. I mean, I bought the Apple app and things like that, so I can get both. But yeah, I didn't notice that there's like, there are still a bunch of those.
Like, they're popping up every once in a while. They pop up. It's kind of it's like as soon as you take down everything, you think you've taken it all down, and then whack them up somewhere.
It's the Hydra. Yeah,
it is. Well, and it's not surprising with this film because it was
it's
listed
iconic
as being in the public domain, for God's sake, for a number of years, and then it just went crazy because it was never monitored. It was never there was nothing ever really happening with the film. Pam really would have this awakening until a couple of things. Well, first of all, fans started 40 years later. Everybody's, the fans are like, why isn't there not a restoration of this iconic film?
Right.
And so she was hearing a lot from fans, from people. And so she finally went back to Steve Ledwell, Buddy Ledwell's son, who's taken over the trucking business, right? Without Buddy Ledwell, you'll recall, there would never have been a Boggy Creek.
Right.
In terms of the completion financing. And his son ended up with some of the original prints. They didn't have, I don't think they had any camera negatives, but they had a lot of archival stuff. And then he still had the copyright, which he graciously gave to Pam.
Wow. That was very nice of him.
Well, yeah, because, who else was going to do something with this? The trucking company wasn't, and Pam was. And, she is pretty much the gatekeeper for the estate and for her father's legacy. So it was just a real labor of love, and it was an expensive project. It's not cheap to have these films restored. Ironically, where they found the most pristine print, so most of the elements that you see in the restoration are elements from an archival print from the BFI. And the reason for that is because in the UK, I don't know if it's still a policy, but it certainly through the 70s, it was a policy that if any foreign film were to be screened, any film not a British film or not a UK film, that was going to be screened in the UK, the BFI had to have an archival print that had never been run through a projector that they kept in storage and in archives. Ooh. So come to find out, of course, Boggy Creek, when it played in the UK, when it screened in the UK, they had a pristine, never run through the projector 35mm print. Yeah. So a lot of the preservation efforts were based on those elements.
But I was waiting for you to say they found like an old canister in the swamp, and there it was.
Well, they did find 10 reels of outtakes.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, and actually, I got to see just a little bit of it from George Eastman Museum. It was really cool. I was able to see my dad on set and kind of doing his thing, which is really bizarre. Nice. Because I think he was, he was 23 at the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, 20. Wow. No, he was 22, I think.
Goodness.
Yeah, 22. Not even.
Just a baby.
Well, yeah, let's see. No, that's not true. He was 23 or 24. He and Charlie were around the same age. My parents were young when they had me, too. They were 20, 21, 22 when they had me. So no generation gap that way, It's nice.
No, it was definitely far-reaching. I mean, like I say, I was well aware of the film before, Matt told me about your role in it. But it's, I can remember driving down that way, and I was born in Northern Illinois, but my father took us down there fishing at one point. And he's like, This is Falk, Arkansas. Well, as a matter of fact, kids, it's a little off the road. We're going to go through Falk, Arkansas, where we can,
one thing,
get
Lyle,
the monster. It was,
one thing. My buddy Lyle is he's the keeper of all of the sighting information, the database for all of the sighting, and there's still sightings to this day.
Oh yeah.
So he's written a book called The Beast of Boggy Creek. He's written another book called Moma. It's the Missouri Monster, which is, I think, one of his newest books. And he's awesome. I mean, he's just great. So I love going with Lyle when I'm down there, because he'll camp out in the swamps.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like, it's hardcore, man. I mean, it's just really kind of hardcore. He's been featured on the Animal Planet on the Discovery Channel, and a lot of different shows, because he's a monster hunter, basically.
Yeah. See if you can hook us up with them. I'd love to hear some Momo stories and stuff. Yeah. It's around California, Missouri, in that area was Momo.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's certain states that have these quintessentially legendary, unexplained creatures. What's the one that Illinois has one? The one that flies through the air? What's that? The moth?
Oh God, what's it called? Like the Puska or the?
Yeah. So, is that it? The
Pisca or something like that. Yeah, it's the kind of a condor type creature. Yeah.
Crazy. And then, so they're people who really do delve into the original reporting and try and find consensus and common denominators from one report to the other, which there are. I think that's what makes these stories not only continue to be told and people continue to believe in it. It's because, there are kernels of truth to it. And I've always said, people have asked me throughout the past couple of years, especially since the movie's seen a rebirth, they've asked me, well, do you believe in the Falk monster? Do you believe in a Bigfoot?
Yeah.
And it's like, what do you think about that? And I have to think about it, and my answer is yes. And the reason why my answer is yes is because I believe that once something enters the social consciousness, right? So this is a part of our reality. The Falk monster, Bigfoot, is part of our reality. It's because we continue to tell the stories. We continue to keep it alive. And it, like mythology, like all good mythology does inherently, I think, the more those stories get told, the more archetypical they become.
Right.
And the more, in a kind of Jungian way, get tied into our psyches and manifest themselves in ways like, well, for example, a lot of our horror creatures have, like the Wolfman. I'm really, really delving into aspects of the Wolfman right now. I'm writing an album about it's more like a Bluebeard's Castle kind of concept, right? Where it's more like, it's not about the supernatural Wolfman that I'm writing. It's more about what makes the Wolfman scary that is in every man.
Right. That is inherently kind of humanistic.
One of the songs, for example, is called "Stay Away." Right. It's about this man who's pleading with his girlfriend to, he's going to change, and she has got to do everything she can to stay away from him. Despite their relationship, she's got a key. She's got to lock him up. She's got to chain him up. She's got to do whatever she can to get away from him, because he will kill her. And it's really not about a werewolf situation, which is a very werewolf situation. It's actually about a real situation, right? It's about how we always live. I think everybody lives with, some kind of a dark side that they have to negotiate. And to be honest enough to reveal that to someone whom you love deeply it's a terrifying thing, and it makes a person incredibly vulnerable to attack, to emotional destruction, to a lot of different things. And so really that's kind of what it's about. And I guess the whole album is about that.
Kind of like Nietzsche and the Nietzsche concept of the duality of man. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a little existential, I think, from that in that respect for sure. Yeah,
man, we've got to have you back on, talk about that, about oh my God, like DNA memory, and I mean we touched on that a little bit, yeah, which I'm really fascinated by all that shit. But yeah, we've got to have you back on just to shoot the shit about that. It'd be great to do.
I'd love to come back on. You guys are fantastic. You've been a highlight for me, so thanks.